meeting with us. Okay, and I really appreciate that. Yes, you with the passion that you have responded, and with the content of today's delivery. Definitely, we know that definitely we are going to have some positive response. So we would like to start the meeting as honest, and I'm going to hand over to Dr. Popola, who is going to coordinate for today, and then he can give us a rundown of the program. And then after that, we have the address, and then we'll start the seminar in proper. Thank you very much.
Right, thank you, Chairman, NSC London UK branch. Thank you to everybody present. You're all recognized. We don't do too much of a protocol on this platform, I'm afraid, apart from our speaker. Today, we are talking about engineering. Actually, this month, generally, we're talking about transport system, railway transport system. So we have two presentations this month, and the first one is today. So with no further ado, I'm Sunday Popola. I'm the Director of Publicity for the NSC London UK branch. We're recording just for our own benefit. We're not going to it's for our own benefit, the record of war we have, or the discussion we're having today. Please, if you don't mind when you come in, I mean, all of you are in now, people to try and mute themselves so that we could concentrate on what we're saying. So firstly, I'm going to pass it back on to the chairman to do his normal welcome speech. But before that, the usual protocol, you know, I said we're not going to do protocol. We do acknowledge everybody on there. Please, when the speaker is speaking, drop your comments, your question onto the chat, and we will go through them at the end of the presentation. Don't try and basically interrupt the speaker. If the speaker decided to make his slides available to us, yes, and he doesn't mind everybody having a copy, we're requesting from him now. So at the end of this presentation, he will decide whether he wants to give us a copy of his presentation. Then we will share that on our usual platform. The president of NSC is not here, but we acknowledge everybody, or all the chairman or chairpersons from all the NSC branches all over the world. We acknowledge you, fellow engineers and associates and architects. You're all very welcome. So with no further ado, I'm going to pass you on to the chairman of London UK branch to do his a short welcoming address. And in the name of Engineer Chio Bosun Odunlami. Engineer.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you so much, Dr. Popola. Once again, we want to say good afternoon to everyone here regarding NSC London UK branch monthly webinar. It's a pleasure to have you. It's a bright and sunny day over here in London, and I believe some of us are in different time zones, having a wonderful time as well. And it's a pleasure to have you once again, and I'm always overwhelmed when I see the collection of engineers from all over the world talking about the same topic that concerns the motherland, Nigeria. And that is exactly what we stand for in London UK branch. It's not about us, it's not about what we want to get for ourselves, it's about how we can impact the whole system of experience that we have gained abroad to develop our motherland in Nigeria, to see how we can put in our own effort as engineers and provide solutions to what we've got here. Without much ado, I just want to reiterate about a couple of things happening over here in London. The Elizabeth line is up and running, as we are aware, and definitely we can see that the jigsaw for London to have a rail orbital, that is to have a rail connection round about the whole city of London, is coming into place now. So for those of us who are aware of the road, can we keep ourselves muted, please? Thank you. For those of us who are aware of the road orbital in London, we have the M25 going around London, and we have the A406 as well. And then if you look at the road in terms of surface, the rail in terms of surface network, the whole picture is coming into place now, whereby we have a holistic circulation of London by rail. That kind of model is what we are thinking about. And then definitely we believe that can also be cascaded into major cities in Nigeria to ease traffic and to ease haulage of materials at the same time, bring some revenue for the locality. Also, we need to remember that Nigeria as a whole, the coming election, let's be focused, let's play our part as diasporans and even as indigents in the country to make sure definitely we make use of our rights to more or less kind of exercise our rights as individuals, as a collective body in Nigeria towards bringing in a new leadership structure in the country. We must not forget what is happening in Ukraine and Russia as well. We know it's not a blaming or shaming game at the moment, but lives are being lost. Let's keep them in prayers. And not only keeping them in prayers, let's begin to look at our pockets of and areas of influence, how we can learn from that situations. One of the things that we engineers need to do is lesson learned. What can we learn from the debacle happening in Ukraine and Russia? How can we avoid it? What can we learn from that? And if there's any kind of opportunity for you to help people that are victims of that situation, let's come around. Let's see what we can do to help them as well. Like Dr. Popoola said, the theme for our lecture this month is going to be railway transportation. So much has been said, so much has been done. We can see so many things, good, right, ugly, and bad has been kind of spread in terms of news, false information, correct information, no information at all. But this time around, we from London branch, we want to see the rail transportation in a different perspective this month. And we are going to center on that going forward for this month. And that is why our speaker is not somebody who is kind of foreign to the rail transportation system in Nigeria. He's part and parcel. He knows the holy grail of the rail system in the country. He's been there, he has done that, and he can get the t-shirt. And he has the perspective both for the diaspora point of view and from the home-based point of view as well. So it's going to be an interesting topic today going forward. And subsequent topic and webinars are going to delve more into rail transportation. I'm saying this, colleagues, honorables, we're not looking at naming and shaming this time. We're looking at profiling solutions. Engineers are problem solvers. So it's not a matter of blaming anybody. It's how do we solve the problem? How do we drill down and get it done? And I believe definitely your cooperation is definitely is required in this area to drive the branch together. We are looking for people that are ready to kind of partner with us in solving problems for Nigeria from the diaspora point of view. And for those of us who are regular, please make sure you make your subscription payment as promptly as possible. And we have a couple of projects that we are doing at the moment, and we want you to participate with us. If you are interested in that area, please let us know as well. Now, the subscription payments are as follows, as going to be shown on the next slide. For those of us who are company-based, you've got a company that you are working with in London and you want to participate as a corporate body with London UK branch, well, the subscription fee for the annual subscription is £150. For full membership is £75. For associate membership is £50. Student membership is £30. And affiliated membership will be £15. And you can see the benefits you can get going forward from having that level of membership. For the company, you get the whole shebang, and as well as a full member. And also definitely associated membership, definitely you are only limited to a couple of things. However, you can see that at the end of the day, you are still entitled to come on site visit with us. You are still entitled also to be a mentor and to be mentored in any area that you require. And these are the things that we intend to bring on board in terms of what we do in the London UK branch. And definitely now, for us to go straight without making a much ado or waste your time, I'm going to hand over to Dr. Popoola to introduce the speaker for today, Mr. Roland Ataguba, and to give us a dossier of what he has in flavor for us today. Thank you very much. I pray that you have a wonderful time. God bless. Over to you, Dr. Popola.
Myself. Thank you very much, the chairman, for the introductory welcoming speech. Yes, let's dive in. It's now 1:15. I would like to introduce our speaker for this afternoon, Engineer Roland Ataguba. He's the managing director of a company called Bethlehem Rail Infrastructure, a dedicated railway project management consultant based in London. And he's also a managing director of a PSO Project Management Limited. This is an infrastructure delivery consultancy in Nigeria. So he's got two hats, basically. He's got one based in London, collecting all the knowledge from the UK, and then he's got another hat in Nigeria where he could shift all those knowledge and implement it, both in the UK as well as Nigeria. He has a background in architecture, quality surveying, building management and construction, an MBA with an MSc in project management from Henley Business School, formerly called Henley Management College in Oxford, in the United Kingdom. Professional experience, varies from all over the world: United Kingdom, Spain, United States, Nigeria, with involvement in project and construction, railway, metro, housing. I can keep going. I mean, the CV is about 10 pages. So he spanned a lot of area of engineering, including traffic engineering and management. And to just list some of his involvement or position, he's been a project manager for major projects on Network Rail, which is a UK-based thing. Project manager at State Coach. Again, they deal with rail as well as coaches in the UK. Project manager in London Underground. Oh my God, this guy is really touch every corner of engineering. He's a project assurance advisor on the $1.5 billion London Ibadan standard gauge railways modernization. He's a chair of rail work group of the Nigeria Economic Summit, a technical advisor of the committee on the House of Parliament, House of Representatives in Nigeria, technical advisor to Railway on the Presidential Project Assessment Committee, member of the Technical Committee of the Nigerian Senate on the bill to repeal and reenact the Nigerian Railway Corporation Act. And it goes on and on and on. I mean, as I've said, he's a consultant with Short P as well. And some of you know Short P, the subsidy and reinvestment and environment program in Nigeria, which was run for many years. And some of our members here actually had worked for Short P in the past. So with no further ado, I'm going to allow Roland to dive in and share his slides so that we go out this fantastic presentation and a presentation and discussion on how Nigeria Railways project can deliver their strategic objectives. I'm sure they do have it, but how can they deliver it? So that's what Roland is going to tell us. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Popola and Mr. Chairman. I hope I've got good sound. You'd have to forgive me. I'm on the call. I'm joining the call from Nigeria. I'm in Abuja. And we've been struggling with our infrastructure for some time. Light's been failing, so we're out of power at the moment. And I hope my battery would sustain the presentation. So I'll be quick. And got a few slides here that I'll just quickly run through. The discussion today is centered on how railway projects can deliver their strategic objectives. And I'm sorry, I don't know how good my signal is, so an error message just came up on my screen warning about the stability of my connection. Can you hear me?
We can hear you clearly for now.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay.
If we cannot hear you, we'll let you know.
Okay, please. As I said, the discussion today is centered on how Nigerian railway projects can deliver their strategic objectives. Now, what are these objectives? How have we fared so far? What are the challenges and how can they be resolved? I will attempt to address these headlines in the course of the conversation. If I can find where I am. Beg your pardon. You really need to forgive me. I'm a bit of a...
You're on the second slide or the third slide now on the content. Second slide on content.
Yes, just bear with me a second. Right. As I said, I have a few slides to run through. A brief introduction to the NRC would be followed by the scorecard of the implementation of the 25-year vision, which I will introduce briefly. And followed by what I would call the agenda for change. I've got too many bits on my screen. I'm having difficulty actually moving slides. Okay. Nigerian Railways was created in 1912 with the merger of the Lagos Railways and the Baroka Railways. It became an autonomous public corporation created by the NRC Act of 1955 with the objective of the carrier that will offer full value and quality of service, ensure safety of operations, and maximum efficiency, meet social responsibility in a manner, I'll say that again, because this is very important in trying to assess the performance of the railway. The objective of the NRC Act of 1955 is to create an NRC with the objective in a manner that will offer full value and quality of service, ensure safety of operations, and maximum efficiency, meet social responsibility in a manner that will meet the requirements of rail users, trade, commerce, and the general public. Sorry, I missed that aspect. In essence, the Enabling Act provides for the conduct of a stable and sustainable railway business by the corporation. This is a famous map, I believe, of the railways. Some legacy pictures. This is the Benue Bridge in Makurdi. This is a picture from way back 1932. Here is a famous Ebute Metta in 1963.
You're not.
Now, I can tell you the history of the NRC in 3 slides. Here is the Ibadan station in 19...
Engineer,
Sorry?
Your slide is still on the Nigerian Railway Corporation. You need to move your slides down.
Can you see?
We're still on the Nigerian Railway Corporation. You need to move 2 slides down. Okay. NLC,
really?
NLC background.
It means the screen, the slideshow.
Showing the map of Nigeria now. So you can continue.
Are we? Okay. Yeah. How are we on this? Okay. Yes, I was going to tell you the story of the NRC in 3 slides. You've got the Ibadan station in 1961. Just look at the environment, pristine. Even look at the train driver. You would have thought it was the Orient Express. This is 1978. Makurdi. You can see the contrast. We're already in dilapidation. Not further up, 2008. The Railway Corporation is more like a cemetery of abandoned and disused railway stock. That, for me, was a story of 40 years of railways in Nigeria, the first 40 years. Enter the 25-year vision. And anyone who's been familiar with railway conversations in Nigeria would have heard the term the 25-year strategic vision for the Nigerian railway system. This came into being in 2002. The Obasanjo government commissioned a study to develop a strategic vision for the railways. And it was adopted as the blueprint for the future of the Nigerian railways in the same year. The vision itself provides for the transformation of the railway system from a non-performing and debt-ridden parastatal to a dynamic
We've lost you. I think the network is bad. Can anyone hear our speaker?
No, I cannot.
Okay, I think he's having problem with the network. So let's just give him a second, 2 minutes to get back.
By developing policies and regulations that encourage investment through the promotion of public.
Now we've definitely, okay, it's back again.
I am so sorry. I seem to have lost you.
Yeah, you're cutting it out now, but you're back now. So I'll tell you what. Why don't you remove your video down so you can just hear your voice and the slides. If you share your slides again because it's come off, and turn your video off so we can hear your voice and watch your slides, and that will be usually less broadband.
Right, I use less data.
Yeah.
Can you see my screen now?
Yeah, we can see your screen. Yeah.
Right, we were on the 25-year vision, and I hope you can hear me too. I mean, in essence, the vision provides for the transformation of the railway system from a non-performing and debt-ridden parastatal to a dynamic player in the transportation sector through strategic investments and new policy initiatives, and by encouraging investment by the private sector. It also provided for a progressive reduction of the burden of the railway sector on the national budget by developing policies and regulations that encourage investment in the rail sector by the private sector through the promotion of PPPs. So we've got two key strategic objectives from here. One, reduction of the debt or the burden, financial burden on the federal government. If you've been following the railways in the last 20 years, the burden hasn't reduced, it's grown, and it's growing. You keep hearing about the billions and billions of dollars that we continue to commit to the railways. Now, to facilitate the achievement of these objectives, all costs, benefits, and risks associated with investments would be clearly identified and assessed for investment to proceed. This is in the conduct of feasibility studies and so on, and other studies, which have been done, even though not very transparent. So we propose to introduce transport policies that promote the use of the rail sector. The corollary being, of course, that this will reduce congestion and vehicle emissions and improve road safety for travelers. It also provided for the strengthening of railway capacity through local sourcing of maintenance and construction materials, and by developing the national capacity in rail technology, including the capacity to design and specify standards for the domestic production of railway components. Now we have a program that was defined for 25-year vision, which essentially entails a phase one of emergency rehabilitation and institutional reform. And again, if you're up to date with the railways, you would see that we have done some rehabilitation. We've done no restructuring. I don't know about operational changes, some training, investment planning, and all of that. But the capacity for production of rail or the development of national technology capacity, all are on paper, really. Ajaokuta is still moribund. And these are things that are supposed to have happened in the past. It's a 25-year vision. So if it started in 2002, we should be looking to winding it up 2027. And this is 2022. But I can assure you that we've done less than 20% of this. And this is where the problem started. The first contract that was awarded for under the 25-year vision was the Lagos-Kano Standard Gauge Railway. This was awarded in 2006 by the Obasanjo government. Now, if I can take you back to the timetable for the program of the 25-year vision, you can see that phase one had no construction of new lines. And surprisingly, it was the first thing that the federal government jumped at doing. So it had gone into phase two, bypassing phase one. It's like running before learning to walk, because the key things you need to do are in your phase one, in your institutional reform, because you need to understand why the railways ended up the way they did. How did we get to this point? And until you had an understanding of that, you really shouldn't be investing any new money in railway. And we had that understanding from the 25-year vision, that it was primarily because there were conflicts of interest in the way we operated the rail Railway was same setting of standards and maintenance standards was, essentially the referee was a player in his own game, and you couldn't really call that progressive. Anyway, so this is where we started the problem of the implementation of the 25-year vision.
Not hearing anything.
So sorry, guys, we've lost our speaker again.
Started in the middle. It's awarded in the twilight of, for a track length of 2 was double track from Lagos to. Hello, can you hear me, please?
You're fading in and out.
We can hear you now, or you went off for about a few seconds there, but you're back now.
Right. Problem is I don't I'm not sure where I lost you. But anyway, I'm talking about the Lagos-Kano Standard Gauge Railway. With a total track length of 2,733 kilometers at $8.3 billion, it works out at about $3.04 million per kilometer. That is the rate of the contracted rate. I had an initial problem with that contract when it was first signed because I thought it was excessive amount of money. And the manner in which it was procured also lends the reservations to that cost. I have a background in construction costs, so I have a fair understanding of these things, and I just felt it was excessive. And when you looked at the procurement of that contract, there's a number of dodgy things. Only 2 companies that bidded, for instance, were related to one another, which meant you couldn't get a fair price. There most likely possibility of collusion between the parties. In any case, we ended up with a $8.3 billion contract. That contract has been revised to date. We're still going to spend $8.3 billion, but we're getting only 1,443 kilometers track length this time for the same amount of money, which means that the unit price has moved up to nearly $6 million per kilometer. In essence, that price has doubled. Now that is one problem. Because you see this Lagos-Kano, and if you go back to that timetable, you see that the conversion to standard gauge from narrow gauge, don't forget there's a Lagos to Kano narrow gauge railway line. And the idea was that by the phase 2, we would start to convert these narrow gauge lines to standard gauge, because one of the objectives of the
Sorry again, the
vision was that we were going to migrate our railway, expand the railway network under construction at the time, which was the central line, which was to serve the steel industry. Now, can you hear me?
We can hear you, but it's cutting out regularly now.
I am so sorry, but
you're back now, so keep going.
Okay. Well, so we've got the issue of the so the projects. Well, we've got the issue of the Lagos-Kano contract, as I was saying, that we committed to do. And that contract, we're now paying twice the original cost, which in any case, we thought was overpriced. But notwithstanding, we now have, with the Buhari government preparing its handover notes to go in a year's time or thereabouts, it is safe to see what is outstanding. And you can see them on that sketch there. Ibadan to Abuja is outstanding, hasn't started. Kaduna to Kano has started. And these are all phases of the same Lagos to Kano railway line. And don't forget, that line was supposed, by the original contract, should have been completed by 2010. It was a 4-year contract and it was awarded in 2006. And if things went as they should have been completed. Well, outstanding contracts right now or projects, Lagos to Calabar, got Port Harcourt to Maiduguri, which we're still doing in narrow gauge. It's rehabilitation and reconstruction. Kano to Maradi, which is a new line that extends from Kano into Niger Republic. We've got Egani to Abuja, which links up the Itakpe-Warri line and connects it to Abuja, and of course, links it up with the Western line onto Kano. We've got deep sea ports in Warri and Bonny. We've got an industrial park in Bonny, Chikun. Riga Chikun is in Kaduna, Kajola, and Transport University in Daura. And I believe there's a Transport University plan for Ubima in Rivers. Now, problem with all of these outstanding projects, desirable as they may seem, is the cost. There's at least $25 billion, and Nigeria doesn't have 25 billion, and we haven't had any of these projects covered by any of the loans yet. Kano Maradi, there is a loan agreed in principle with Credit Suisse, and I think the paperwork is just going through, but we did groundbreaking on that line more than a year ago. So not quite sure why it's still held up, but it's not happening. That's the reality. There's some work going on Port Harcourt to Maiduguri, between Port Harcourt and Enugu. But the loan, there's a commercial loan from China that was supposed to fund this. That loan hasn't arrived. So funding that's going on of that project is federal government funded. Hello? Federal government funded. And can you hear me? I have a feeling.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Keep going.
Oh, you can. Super. Right. Now, these outstanding projects are all awarded contracts. Problem they have is funding of them. None of them have the funds to do. The wagon is CSR by the Chinese, not freight transportation going on the railways. So whether you're producing wagons, I'm not sure who's going to buy them. And there's no word that that is making much progress. The Transport University in Daura is also a CSR, like same Chinese contractor. But there's a lack of clarity in terms of what is being provided. Is it just the buildings and the infrastructure? Or are they going to do the teaching? Are they going to help with the curriculum and so on and so forth? So there are a lot of question marks with a lot of these. But essentially, what dogs these projects all now at the moment is funding. Where is the money to do them? There is none, as far as we know. But even having if you're able to fund these projects, there's still a question mark as to their sustainability in terms of, yes, you will complete the projects because the Chinese are quite efficient, and especially where the lender is paying the money to the contractor directly, means money doesn't go, no leakages, which also means the contractor gets paid and he does the work. And that's why we're getting results from the Chinese, notwithstanding anyway. Where the real problem lies with our railway is here. And I hope all can see this slide. This is a passenger performance graph in the life of the NRC. And this is the NRC under Nigerian management. From way back from 1960s to the present time, you can see the volume of traffic. Now, this graph, in a way, doesn't do, or does the NRC a huge favor, because it actually tends to make performance look normal or reasonable. But this is incredibly poor performance. One, because when you look at the market, the size of the market that it's attacking is a market of what, 100, if not a billion passenger trips a day. And you're doing what, in the tens of thousands, you're doing 20,000, 30,000 trips a day. You're not even touching the market. You're not even up to 1% in market share. Sorry, I'm getting some chat coming through my speaker.
Sorry, I'm just trying to mute the person concept.
Ah, okay, thank you. Now that's passenger performance. And in the last 20 years, that graph, well, without a decent reference point, I suppose, really couldn't make much sense of it. But one thing we must remember, the objective of the NRC was carriage of passengers and goods in a manner that will offer full value, quality of service, ensure safety of operations and maximum efficiency, and meet social responsibility in a manner that will meet the requirements of rail users, trade, commerce, and the general public. Also, the 25-year vision was about the transformation of the rail system from a non-performing and debt-ridden parastatal to a dynamic player in the transportation sector. Now, those charts don't tell you about anyone that's being transformed or that's moving anywhere positively. The fortunes of the NRC have been in steep decline from way, way back from the 60s and 70s, because it stopped recovering its operating costs from as far back as 1964. So it's not a political thing. It's not about PDP, APC, or whatever, NPN, or whatever party you'd want to name. It's been in the history of the NRC. So it's a structural problem. I mean, by 1978, revenue covered only 40% of the operating costs. And by 2004, this was already down to 14%. Indeed, rental income from the NRC's extensive property holdings exceeded revenue from its operations. So, come to think of it, Today, its operating ratio, which is how much it covers its operating costs, it's only about 20%, which means that 80% of what it spends still needs to come from the public purse. How can we sustain that? How can that be sustained? I mean, as at today, with an operating ratio around 20%, the NRC is essentially unsustainable. It needs investment and human capacity development to thrive, and federal government alone is incapable of providing this. So it needs a different approach. I don't think there's any gain in saying that. If you look at those revenue figures, I'm sorry, I thought I put them up. I put only volumes up. Okay. Well, in 2003, NRC revenues were nearly 600 million naira on the back of expenses of 3 billion. So you spend 3 billion to earn 600 naira. I mean, if you're a managing director of a private company, you wouldn't be managing director for much longer. Corporation was practically bankrupt again, spending as much as 5 naira for every 1 naira of revenue earned. In 2003 and 2004, the FG provided the NRC with subsidies, and its ballooning debt profile was in excess of 10 billion at that time. Now, part of the problem of quoting figures in naira is because the value is not been stable over the years, and I've generally tended to have a preference to baseline everything in dollars. But seems as if this presentation has much of naira values. But if you look at July 2006, by that time, NRC's
I think you have to move to the slides. We're not seeing that slide at the moment. You're on slide 17. I think you need to move up to 19 or 18 for us to see that slide you're describing.
You can't see which one?
We can only see slide 17 at the moment. Is that the slide you're on?
I am on 17.
Yeah, is that the one you're describing now? Yeah.
Yes, I am on 17. Can you see 18?
We can see 18 now, yeah.
Right, okay. Well, 18 is just a 20-year snapshot excerpt from slide 17.
Okay.
In any case, I think without belaboring the point and harping on what is wrong, or giving the detail of what is evidently, or what the charts are showing as clearly very mediocre performance. I think the problems of the railway or with these projects, and don't forget, even though I've identified or highlighted projects which were mostly commenced in the last few years, if I may say, because I didn't highlight any rehabilitation. But since 2009, we've been spending money and investing money on the railway sector. But because the spending has been haphazard, essentially been procurement driven, if I may say. We're not doing the key, important, imperative things, such as institutional reform. And that is at the nub of where the failings lie, is the fact that the NRC has not historically been a great or a sustainable operator. So in the course of time, we have lost time. I mean, you can imagine we're 23 years down the road, or 22 years down the road, 20 years down the road from in the implementation of the 25-year vision, and we've barely scratched 10, 20% of what needs to be done. So we've lost time. There is no clarity of how current steps will deliver the vision. If you look at the NRC Act, it's very clear that NRC is synonymous with railway in Nigeria, and NRC is responsible for building, for operating, for regulating, everything called rail projects. All the projects that are being done by the Port Harcourt projects are domiciled in the Ministry of Transport. There is some the water there. And there are issues with rehabilitation as well. It was dogged with failure. The contractor that couldn't build a bridge and had to be helped. In fact, the Chinese had to step in to help that contractor to complete his work. There's no evident champion for the restructuring of the railway environment. There's no clear communication strategy. Most of what we get out of the railway in terms of information comes from the minister. Ministers are running the railway. As I said, funding is haphazard and lacks transparency. There's no overall coordination of delivery of the vision. And the management of the relationship with state railways. Many states have been trying to build railways, particularly like Lagos. Others have taken ginger steps and retreated. But who's managing this relationship? And part of the problem with our government agency is they have or tend to have this master-servant relationship with third parties, and you just wonder whether they can manage a relationship with a very progressive state like Lagos, for instance. Technical issues with the projects as well concern project and program management issues in terms of what's the program. Just said, 20 years down, a 25-year program, and your level of achievement is less than 20%. There are issues around the project scope and organization management, procurement issues, as I said earlier, the inspections of the condition surveys that were done of the narrow gauge also did not capture all the defects. That's in charge of projects, estimation and contract administration issues. If projects or contracts are prolongated, some of these are the issues that were dogging these projects. So what do we do? I say we need an agenda for change. And these are essentially issues that need to be externalized. I don't believe that a physician can heal itself. And therefore, if you're asking the NRC to reform itself, you will struggle, largely because they would always err on the side of least pain. And so I advocate the creation of a reform task force, in fact, with a presidential imprimatur, for evident political reasons. We need new legislation, and I think it's the biggest failing of the current regime of of the Railway Ministry, of the Transportation Ministry, the fact that we have not managed to pass any legislation in the course of their tenure. We've got a regulatory bill, and we've got a reform bill for the railway. None has really made it into the statute books. Yes, the NTC bill, the National Transport Commission bill, which is the regulator for transport, was passed by the National Assembly, but was not assented to by the president, and time's gone. We still need that independent transport sector regulator, whether we like it or not. An operator can't keep regulating itself. It's very unsafe. We need to separate the freight business from passenger business, because the 80-20 rule suffices, and it tells you the story of the railway, of the Nigerian railway. You go to those charts again, the performance charts, you can see how much effort has been expended on the passenger business to the detriment of the freight business. And yet, the sustainability of the railway will derive from the freight business, not from the passenger business, because the passenger business is highly subsidized. But so much focus is a strategic problem. It's a business strategy problem in terms of the way we are operating the railway. So in separating that, we need to create a national freight company, rail freight company, if you like, a national railway passenger business, totally separate and run by separate organizers. Something we borrowed from the UK privatization was the creation of rolling stock operating companies that would provide rolling stock to operators, to private operators in business. And then, of course, disposal of non-core assets as fundamental to reform. The railway is a huge industry. It is one of the first corporations. In fact, it was the corporation, the first corporation that was set up by the colonial masters. Your water board of today used to be a department in the railway. Your NEPA or PHCN or whatever, electricity board, was a department in the railway corporation. They were all departments in the railway. P&T, what later became P&T or became NITEL, telecoms, was a department in the railway. So for you to understand how much of baggage the railways carry, and it needs to be broken up, it needs to be unbundled. Last year, Ministry of Transport inaugurated an unbundling committee to look into unbundling the NRC. Committee is still out, and we hope that it will be able to have something to show at the time this government leaves next year. Now, what benefits, and here is my recipe for change, has here a Ministry for Transport and, excuse me, and a renamed NRC, which we call the NRA. And the NRA will not participate in operations. It will not run railway operations, but it will grant, in conjunction with the minister, concessions to passenger companies to run railway operations. It will also grant concessions to the rail freight company. We will create an independent regulator. And that independent regulator, of course, will liaise with other regulators like competition regulator. And the operating companies would all be private sector driven. And that, for me, is my recipe for the future railway. Take NRC out of business or take business out of NRC. Let the private sector run business and let the NRC remain an asset management company. It owns huge amounts of non-performing and underdeveloped assets, and it needs to focus on the regulation. You need private investment in any sector. They must see that regulation is independent. They don't want their grantor to also be the referee, create all kinds of issues for them. Benefits, I think you have a sustainable railway system. We will reduce definitely the burden on the federal government, increase competition and complementarity between rail and roads, and so on and so forth. And of course, the knock-on effect for employment. I reckon we can change the NRC in 4 years. Put together a milestone schedule that seems to say it can be done in 4 years. But then again, 4 years doesn't mean you'll see the results. You'll see the results in the reduction in the burden on the government. You would see the impact in terms of efficiencies in service, and railway is about right time. You want reliability in terms of arrivals, and you want consistency in the service. What are the challenges on time? As I said, we haven't started, we're well behind. Scope creep when the politicians come, everybody wants, that's how we've ended up with railway to Tuoke, railway to Daura. These are political considerations and scope is creeping. Political will and consistency of policy application. I think that's easy to understand or to appreciate. We've seen very sound political will in the last few years. Amaechi has been a very dogged minister. He has been quite tenacious in his pursuit of his objectives. But he has balked at doing certain things, such as in institutional reform, which hasn't happened. And then, of course, the final challenge that we may face is staying the course and, of course, managing expectations. I'm sorry for the communication or connection issues, as I apologized at the start. But that is my presentation, and I would be very happy to answer any questions. But I have one caveat. As I said earlier, I have been on battery power. So my batteries, perhaps we could just rush through any questions that you may have. And hopefully maybe NEPA will rescue me and come back before my battery completely disappears. But I thank you very much, gentlemen. That is my presentation.
Thank you very much for that. Yes, I know the NEPA thing wasn't good for us, but we managed to pick up a lot of things you described there. I mean, you gave us a fantastic history of NRC and your agenda for change at the end is very interesting. So we're going to open it up now to people who have been following or listening to what you were saying to us, your presentation, and see if we could get some few questions in before your battery disappoint the whole system. So I've got some questions online. Engineer Okoye, do you want to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Mr. Speaker. Actually, my question is because based on the graph that you showed, I understood that the cause of why railway was abandoned was because of the transport capacity. So there was a decrease in transport capacity. So NRC, seeing these data and, what measures, like what did they do like to make this data to change, like maybe making railway system attractive to people, or maybe providing, like, as we know what is happening in the world right now, everyone is trying to be sustainable, and to achieve this sustainability, you have to move a lot of transport capacity to rail, because it can carry a lot of passengers and all those stuff. So why can't they make like a rule or something that we push people to using railway system,
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to take two more questions. Engineer could answer all of them together before the battery runs out. Engineer Abayomi, please make it quick and direct to your question, please.
Okay. My question is direct. When I was in school, I think like Professor Balogu told us that they had foundries and Butemeta there where parts have been. And I think, and at the time, the foundry was dismantled. And I think that will shoot up the cost of maintenance and the cost of operations of Nigerian railway. And that's my own. Do we still have a foundry? How much input does the engineering society or engineers in Nigeria put into it? And we don't have everything come from abroad. The design, the maintenance, and even the parts come from abroad. Thank you.
Right. Okay. Engineer Roland, did you get the two questions?
No, really.
All right. Let me give them
to read some chats.
The first one is about making railway more attractive. What is NRC doing to make railway more attractive? And the second one is about, it says in those days, railway NRC used to manufacture their own parts, but now majority of their parts has been imported. Is that the reason why the railway is not performing and it's not being well maintained? I mean, okay. These are questions directed to NRC, but if you can answer.
Indeed, I can hazard a guess. I'm not their spokesperson. Yeah. No, do I sit on their board? Making it more attractive for investment. One, they don't want investors. NRC is not interested in new people coming in. And so I don't know what you mean by make it more attractive. Attractive for customers. This is part of the problem of asking a government agency to run a business. They're just not cut out for it. They don't even understand competition. They don't know how to compete. There's an entitlement complex. They come to work, they pick up their pay at the end of the month. You never hear that an MD of a federal government agency was sacked because he couldn't meet some target or couldn't or was underperforming. He'll be sacked for far more serious breaches like stealing or something like that, but not for underperformance. So I'm not quite sure about making it attractive. Yes, the other point about the manufacturing of parts. NRC is a huge industrial complex, like everything, and that was what I was trying to explain when I was explaining that water board, NEPA, electricity board, post and telegraphs were all departments under the road. For you to understand how massive it is. It's still got foundries, it's got kitchens, catering, it's got a police, all under the NRC. And in unbundling it, what you will do is you would release so much non-performing asset capacity that even these guys don't even know what they're sitting on, aside from the fact that they just know they don't want anyone near it. So in response to the question about they used to manufacture parts, yes, very true, but they don't anymore. They don't make anything. In fact, they have a printing press that makes their tickets, and it's still using very, very, very analog technology. You see the kind of tickets they print. I'm not even sure how secure they are. But if you sold those or you gave those facilities to a private sector operator, you'd be amazed at what they will turn it into, how much value will be released, how much energy will be.
Thank you. Engineer Moshood, want to ask your question? Raise up your hand.
Yeah, thank you so much, moderator. Is actually saddening. Let me put it that way. But it's on what my question is just one question, and the second one is like a suggestion. I am a student of piling towards the rail system, because I am doing my PhD presently on rail, where I lecture in Lagos State University as a lecturer at the School of Transport. But I want to ask, what are we doing on human factor? Because human factor is a problem. It's really a problem, because I see that when I was doing my pilot study, I went from Idu Terminal to Kaduna, and I saw the way people were trying to kill the system. So what is your advice on human factor? Because it's really a problem. And I keep saying that there is no way you can put politics and transport together. Nigerian Port Authority is a regulator. Nigerian Rail Corporation should be a regulator, as Roland has just said. There should be a regulator. If you check the water transport system, LASWA, the body controlling the waterways in Lagos, are just regulators. Not, as I said, they are not the player, they are not the referee. But Nigerian Railway Corporation at the same time being the referee and at the same time being the so I want to ask, sir, what are you doing in the aspect of human factor? What is your suggestion? Because it's really a problem. Thank you.
Engineer Roland, did you get that question? Yes.
Okay.
If you want to answer it, please.
Yeah, just very quickly, I'd say to you that that's actually a national problem. There's a need for reorientation. Some of the problems that the human capacity factors are not just with the railway. They're across the board. Even the way citizens relate with government. There are serious issues with in those areas. So I would think that there's a need for us all for a mindset change, for us to understand where we're getting things wrong and to learn from other environments. It's like you guys that I see in the diaspora all the time. I see you guys in London, all well behaved, and you behave yourselves. You come into Nigeria and it's like it's not the same people, you know. So there's something about us that just wouldn't let us give up our bad ways. But there's a need for all that to change. And so I'm not disagreeing with you, but just to correct something you said earlier about NPA. NPA is also an operator. So NPA is also one of those parastatals that we have issues with. And in fact, I think it was one of the people that lobbied very furiously against the assenting by the president of the NTC bill. Because what we did with that bill was there are about 20 agencies within transport that have regulatory authority. And what we did was we grabbed it from all of them and we put it into one agency and said, this is the guy who's going to regulate transport from henceforth. And of course, they protested, and some of them have political muscle, and they used it, and allegedly, and the bill is sitting down somewhere, presumably in the villa, hasn't been assented to and hasn't been come back to us. So it's a shame.
Right. Engineer Ajala, please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Thank you, Dr. Popola and Engineer Roland. For somebody whose father worked for Nigerian Railway in the 70s, I could remember myself going to Mubi, Gongola State, traveling with Nigerian Railway, with the train to Maiduguri, before joining the road transport. One of the things that started as in my engineering career is that when I joined the Department for Transport and Environment in this country, there's something called 15 years rehabilitation program. And looking at your slides, it seems we Nigerians, we believe in new infrastructure. At the time, we have a railway, a rail line that traveled from Lagos to Maiduguri. And honestly, the trains were very good. We have sleepers, we have all those things. Why is it that we don't have a political willingness to maintain? We could do like what DFT did, that 15 years rehabilitation program. They did it for all the structures in this country. They said within 15 years, we want to rehabilitate all the structures so they can carry 40 tons. Now, I can't see the reason why we could not do the same thing with the rail to maintain what we've got first. And say, look, we need to upgrade all these lines to standard, to the current standard for 15 years and with a political will. This is not happening. We always tend to do new infrastructure, no maintenance of what we've got. That could have saved us a lot of money before going to new infrastructure. Thank you.
Okay, I don't know. You're able to say something about that?
There's nothing more to add to that. He just captured it all. It's a big problem, but it's not a new problem. It's something that's dogged the way we conduct our public affairs. Every new government comes and they want to initiate their own projects. They abandon what was before, but to be fair to Buhari's government, a number of the projects that they have completed or are trying to complete are projects they inherited. Abuja Kaduna was inherited, even though it was nearly 98% or so complete when they came. But they put it into good use. Warri to Itakbe, another project, 30 years long, but it was Buhari's government that has completed it. The one that they've started, struggling to complete is Lagos-Ibadan. It's not complete yet. So yeah, I'm agreeing with you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Engineer Adekunle Makinde, unmute yourself, please.
Good day, everyone. I want to appreciate NSC London UK branch for another opportunity to learn, to get information, and of course to build capacity. Been doing it over the years, and over the time, and we so much appreciate you. Of course, I want to appreciate Dr. Popola also for sharing this invite with me. Probably I wouldn't have been here if not he shared directly with me. Then, of course, Mr. Roland Taguba also, very well researched presentation here. Thank you so very much, sir. Now, you've made quite a number of postulation in your presentation, which are very much appreciated. And of course, one of them is the fact that it is better. Somebody was saying just now that it's generally better to, it's not good enough to have the major player in the industry as also the regulator. There should be some line of demarcation, which of course I agree very much with. While you are also making your own presentation, Hello, sorry, am I audible?
We can hear
Yes,
you.
you are.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So while you are making your own presentation, you also alluded to the fact that the Nigeria Railway Corporation, should have other players. It shouldn't be government all through. Of course, I also agree with that. But I also very strongly feel that, I wonder how is it going to be whether individual players or corporate entities will be able to survive in this kind of environment. Business-wise, looking at quite a number of challenges. Number one, which is rearing its ugly head almost every blessed day now, is that of security. We know whatever happened about the Abuja-Kaduna track, and the issue is still lingering. And of course, just like somebody also mentioned in the course of asking questions, there's also the issue of, people trying to kill the system. Those of us that do travel here and there, those of us that move here and there, you see how these things operate, the way we comply and so on and so forth. You can, with your Oyster card, you know where to get it, you know which one to board, and everything works seamlessly, But over here, you see people in their hundreds on top of, coaches on trains. So I wonder how, maybe you can help us, how can corporate entities, individuals, how can they possibly survive this kind of environment? Looking at the myriad of, issues around, if it is not government that can, afford to pay 3 billion to make 600 million, how can individual organizations survive this kind of environment? Thank you.
Engineer, I hope you got that question. Engineer Rowan, sorry. I think we've lost him. He's probably disconnected. Maybe NEPA have done his work. No, he's still here. Engineer Roland, were you able to capture that question?
No, I'm still here. A question for me?
Yeah, there was one just now, but it was a long one. I'm not sure if you were able to capture it.
Yes, I heard bits of it, but I wasn't sure if there was a question in there.
Majority of it is actually just contribution. So maybe we'll move on to the next person that raised up there. And Engineer Kolade, please.
This is Teams. This is not Zoom.
Engineer Kolade, are you there?
Good evening, everyone.
Yeah.
I want to thank our...
Make your question simple and short.
Yeah, my question is, how can we improve on the maintenance culture on railway? Now, Nigeria is running on narrow gauge, and we can see the results. We can see how the thing is, because in Nigeria, Nigerians lack maintenance. Even let's talk about our highway. If you construct road today, in the next couple of months, we discover that this road is fade away. You started seeing some fade portion on it. Now let's talk on the rail now. We are moving from narrow gauge to the standard gauge. The standard gauge is being constructed by the Chinese company. Now, they are using series of technology for this construction, using big machine, the tamping machine, ballast machine, and also many machines like that. And all those machines is not available in Nigeria. Even Nigeria Railway did not have this machine. Now, they have constructed Abuja-Kaduna Rail. They have constructed the Itakpe-Warri Rail. And this machine is not left in this site. And the road, the tracks, the line has been added over to the Nigerian Railway. What are they going to be using to maintain this line? Because
thank you
the difference between the standard gauge and the narrow gauge is very, very wide. When we're talking about continuous welded rail, all those things, when we now have broken rail, there are some machines to use to do all those things. which Nigeria Railway did not have all those things. So how are we going to maintain this type of technology we are introducing to this system? Because
thank you very much. We haven't got that much time, so I think we've got your question there. So I'm just going to allow a speaker to reply to that if you can.
Right. Again, I would venture that most these are quite generic issues, more to do with the Nigerian environment as opposed to just the railway environment.
Engineer Liu, are you there? You asked a question online, so I would just wonder if you want to give you the opportunity to ask live. Otherwise, I'm going to call Mr. Lawrence Friedman, please. Want to unmute yourself?
Look, can you hear me okay?
We can hear you loud and clear. Yeah.
Okay. Roland, are you there?
He's there, but I think he's struggling with his audio. I think it's disconnected at the moment. But go on with your question. We'll pass you on to him.
Well, my question is that given the urgency for infrastructure in Nigeria, in particular electricity and railroads, it seemed to me that Roland's report on the NRC was, I would interpret as being pessimistic. So my question is, how rapidly and efficiently can we actually get a functioning national railroad system? I mean, how many, you're talking about reform into an authority, which would take 4 years. What is your vision for how many years it would take to have a national railroad transportation system in Nigeria? Because this is an urgent matter for the sustaining the economic growth of the economy.
Thank you very much. You want to tell us a little bit about yourself? Because you're not a member, we're glad to have you here. Just give us a quick introduction, if you don't mind.
Of myself?
Yes.
Well, I've been involved in development policies for Africa for over 30 years. I first landed in Lagos in 1994. I've probably been there about 15 times, including last April. And I put forward a major water infrastructure project called TransAqua to take water from the Congo River, transported by canal into the Chari River and refurbish Lake Chad. And I spoke at a conference in 2018. I've discussed this with President Buhari several times. And my focus has always been infrastructure development for Nigeria and for Africa. And that's what I write about, and I have a website on that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Now, Roland invited me to your presentation.
Wonderful.
I wasn't sneaking in as a false.
No, that's fine. We don't mind if you sneak in, but we just wanted to know a bit more about yourself. That's fine. You're most welcome. And your question here is very important to us, and we will find the experts on these to give us an answer that we could then pass on to you. I noticed your email address earlier, so that's fine. We'll connect with you and
thank you very much.
Some response. Yeah. So, and if you want to write something in future, we know there's somebody out there that's been doing this thing and be able to publicize some of the things we're thinking about. Oh, you're back with a different name. It must be what your family name now, yeah.
That's my chairman's name.
Your chairman's name, okay. Mr. Lawrence Freeman just asked a question. How effective can we get the Nigerian railway to become a functional, national railway system, and how long is it going to take, in your view?
Larry.
Yes, sir.
You're very good at asking difficult questions.
I tried.
So I am not surprised that you did. But on a serious note, once there's a political will for change, these things happen very quickly and can do very quickly. And as you can see around the table, there's enough talent across the diaspora. You've got Nigerians, I mean, I've done Network Rail, LU, a lot of the operating companies in the UK running railway operations. We find lots of Nigerians. So we do have the skills, we do have the capacity. What it is the enabling environment in Nigeria is just not very welcoming at the moment to efficient delivery of these services. And this is where the work needs to be done. And I think there are perception issues. One, as many diasporans who have tried to engage with the government here would probably know, they're not mostly welcome. There's a lot of jealousy. Some view it that when things were tough, you ran away. Now you're coming back after we've stabilized things and you're wanting to come and reap where you have not sown. As if you need to reap, you need to sow in your country, as if being a Nigerian isn't enough entitlement as it is. So, but these are some of the difficulties that we need to navigate as a nation, because there are some things that we still are scrambling over. Ethnicity, religion, these are very, you would have thought, pedestrian issues that a lot of people have already put behind them, but we're still battling with these. And someone mentioned earlier about insecurity. The insecurity issues in Nigeria cut across the board. How do we get, how can a man start to even think about earning a living if he doesn't feel safe? So some of these are challenges for government, but as citizens as well, we have a role to play. One is by making up our mind that I'm not going to wait for the next guy to change before I change. I will change as a matter of course, because that is a cultural problem that we face here in Nigeria. Everybody agrees we need to change, things need to change, things can't stay as they are. But then no one wants to change. They want you to change. He should change, but I want to stay as I am because I'm happy being, having things the way they are. And of course, that's a recipe for stagnation. Nothing will change. Everyone will remain where they are. So I don't know if I've addressed your question well, but
well, if I may follow up, you mentioned you have a proposal for reform, which I think you put down 4 years to go into a authority. So that's 4 years. Are you saying that the completion or the progress on the national rail system is going to wait for many years? Because you're putting 4 years in for your reform authority, and then you're going to have new policies following that. Unless I'm interpreting you wrong, Ro, and it seems to me we're putting this into a long-term perspective for many years ahead.
No, Larry, the point I'm making is the reform is running concurrently with developments. You're not going to stop everything and say, oh, we're reforming, come back when we finish the reform. Because as you know, reform is not a destination. It's just a means to an end. And it's not a one day, or it's a very long process, long drawn out, and with cultural issues and also technical and strategic issues to navigate. So it is something that needs to run concurrently with development. But what we have done at the moment is we've left reform to one side, and we think that by putting money into infrastructure, that somehow it solves problems. It doesn't. Problems will still be there when you wake up and when you're broke, which will make things even worse.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. Before I get my chairman to give a concluding remark, and thank you for this wonderful presentation, I just want to make some announcement for where we're going to be going in the next few weeks, so that people can see what this next thing we're going to be doing in NSC London branch. So we just finished the question and answer. One of our sister branch, the Glasgow branch, they're going to be doing their webinar in about just over an hour from now, 5 o'clock. If you're interested in, I shouldn't say if you're interested. We encourage you to participate in the webinar, which is very similar to us. And they're going to be talking about data science with Python. Any of you know about all this incredible way to code things and get machines to do things for you. And the practical session, a little introduction to it so that you will see how powerful this thing is. And we have engineer Shinedu Msekwe, who is a member of the University of Aberdeen. He's a researcher there. And he's an expert on artificial intelligence and machine learning. Things of the future, the way things are going, those two things, AI and ML, is going to be running our life. They're running our life now, though. They're going to be even doing more in future. So that's going to take place at 5 o'clock. We have the Zoom link here if you want to take that down. Otherwise, we'll put in the chat for you. And then next 2 weeks' time, our bi-monthly webinar, we're coming back, as the chairman said earlier. We're going to be talking about rail transport this month. So our next one is going to be by Engineer Olu Ashiru, Director of Takodo International, and he's going to be talking about the Abuja Light Railway, which Engineer Roland mentioned earlier, accessing future passenger demand. We spoke earlier that the number of passengers is dwindling, people are not using it, but Engineer Ashiru is going to tell us the work is done in that area. And then come back again in a couple of weeks' time, maybe about 4 weeks' time, end of July. Again, our Glasgow sister branch, they put up an engineering convention conference for this year, and it's going to be on the topic of the role of diaspora professional and local capacity development. We encourage you all. There's been quite a large registration from Nigeria. The president of NSC and the deputy, everybody, about 50 of them or so already booked their tickets to come to Glasgow. So if you're around from 28th to the 30th of July, we encourage you to attend these conventions and share your own experience as to how we move diaspora to be involved in this local capacity development. So on that note, I'm going to bring us back to our chairman to give us a closing remarks on this presentation.
Oh, thank you very much, Dr. Popola. And what a wonderful session. And I just want to say thank you to our speaker for today. We give him the title of engineer today, whether he likes it or not. Engineer Roland Ataguba. That was well delivered. You took us on a very, very crucial journey of the railway from inception to where we are. You looked at the problems, the causes. You look at the mitigation. You look at what we can do and lesson learned from that. And if I didn't get anything out of what you have said, Roland, I could just take home with one thing, the fact that you said there's capacity, both home and abroad. That is one big plus for Nigerians. There's capacity to turn things around. There's capacity for us. The wherewithal is there for us to do this. But now, definitely, we can't work alone. We need you guys to collaborate with us. And I want us as engineers to begin to think about forming joint venture companies together, looking at how we can solve this problem. You cannot do it alone. You can't go there alone with your own, just as a lone ranger to solve this problem. Let's form a conglomerate of ideas. Let's begin to have a hub or hubs here and there where we can tackle this problem. We can start on a small scale, and then we make our noise heard one way or the other. Another way we want to do this is that we want to encourage, we in London branch want to encourage engineers to have engineering blogs. We've got those people on social media, they have fashion blogs. They've got all forms of musical for music entertainment blogs. What about engineers? Let's have some blogs for ourselves. Let's have blogs so that we can highlight these issues. Let the people that matter hear and read our blogs. And you know that definitely we are making noise all over the world for the development of engineering in Nigeria. I want to say thank you for taking your time here to be part of this. It's very wonderful to have you around. You can see the pedigree of the speaker. We can see also the capacity of people that are listening. Then you can see the quality of the questions coming forth. So I can see the enthusiasm in the house of people willing to contribute. We really appreciate this. And on behalf of NSC London UK branch, I want to say thank you so much. And definitely, I cannot say enough thank you to Dr. Popoola for anchoring very well as usual. I want to say thank you to my executive, the vice president, Engineer Chinedu, the secretary, Engineer Mace, Dr. Zule, and also the financial secretary as well. And this is just to say thank you once again. And we hope to see you for the next webinar. We're talking about railway as well. This is the month for railway. I want to go straight to the center. I want to hit the target and see how we can turn things around. And lest you forget, our sister branch, Glasgow, they'll be starting their own webinar in an hour's time. Please endeavor to join in, and then you see another aspect of diasporan impact and capacity building in terms of engineering. Once again, thank you for coming on board. Thank you for taking your time to be with us. We appreciate you. And for those who are not quick on the go, definitely we are going to open the floor for you to have a chat, to meet yourselves, to talk about issues. Definitely not politics, please, we beg you, but definitely engineering. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Engineer Roland. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend, and God bless you. Over to you, Dr. P. Dr. Popoola, are you there?
Once again, my chairman, thank you. Thank you very much. Just a general thing, if you want to contact us, we've got our email address there, contact@nsclondon.org, and a phone number there as well. And we have a website also, the same, nsc.org, info@nsc.org. So you can continue to stay in touch with us. And we'll see you in 2 weeks' time. I'm going to stop recording so that you can now be free to talk about other engineering problem that we all need to solve together, yeah, without getting ourselves into any lockdown or any politics or whatever. So I'm going to stop recording now.
Thank you. Well, thank you guys for having me. I'm going to sign off now.
Thank you so much, Roland, and